Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Pick Up the Mic, Harvest's official podcast. I'm Mike Reiner, lead pastor at Harvest Church with Will Land, the executive pastor. And, we're going to jump right into some Bible talk, but I just want you to know we're happy that Cruz is here with us today.
Yeah, it's always good to have Cruiser back.
Do you know he almost got shot this past weekend? I know I'm dating this, and sometimes our podcasts come out later, so it might not be this weekend by the time they hear it, but Cruz was this close to getting shot.
This close? I don't know.
We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. Nah, actually, I shouldn't joke. It's too soon to joke. Too soon to joke. He was not in any danger. But we'll get back to that. It's just good to have him back. He's looking handsome. People can't see him, but he's starting to do the facial hair thing. Is that are you going to let that go a while? See what you get?
Depends on how long I want to wait before shaving.
I've
just been lazy.
You kind of look like one of the Three Musketeers a little bit. I think it's a swashbuckling look. The ladies are going to dig it.
You know what the key is to growing a really good mustache?
What?
Don't shave it.
Ever.
That's it.
Ever. Well, actually, it's just,
everybody always goes, I always wanted to grow a mustache. I was like, well, I'll tell you the hint. It's just
don't shave it.
Don't shave it off.
Yeah, that's how you do it. A good one, though. Good is a relative term. I use some mud on mine, but I can't get it. I don't like it really short, but it is never going to be one of those cool ones that some dudes have. Some guys have some really cool ones. I never there's a guy named Paul Tripp who's a Christian talker, and his mustache actually scares me. It looks like it's attacking his whole face, and it's going to come bite me too. It's like it's just a big bush that goes, whoa. I'm like, no, keep away. Anyway, let's get down to it. I want to talk about the scandal of the cross.
Yeah, you hit
the scandal.
You hit the topic this week in your sermon.
Yeah, the scandal of the cross. That word comes from a Greek word, scandalon, and it's interesting because the way the Bible lays out the cross, or Jesus Christ himself, he is, what he describes himself at is a rock that can save you, which, how can a rock save you? Or a rock that if you fall on top of it, you're destroyed. Neither of those metaphors work real well in my imagination. Because normally you don't get destroyed by falling on a rock. You get destroyed if a rock falls on you. But the word scandalon, or the scandal of the cross, is you trip over Christ. And Christ has made himself the very center of the human race. He says, look, you're either going to heaven because of me, or you're going to hell because of me. And puts himself right in the middle of everything, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and in talking about this with a few guys after the sermon, I mean, the one thing I pointed out is that Christ as a man and his impact on the world are undeniable. I mean, right? I mean, people try to deny it, but it's truly undeniable. I mean, it's the man that split time in half, right? That it doesn't matter what culture you go to in the world, what religion, it's still 2024 AD, right? The year of our Lord.
Chinese do have a different calendar, but they're stuck using the Western calendar.
Yeah.
Because they can't get away from it. The Jews have a different calendar, but they use the Western what we call the Western calendar too. Yeah.
The Bible, the history of the Bible is the history of the technology of books altogether. Like,
what do you mean?
Well, the Bible was the first book, the first codex. Like the way we're so used to seeing books in bound form,
rather than scrolls.
Was all done as technological development to proliferate the Bible. Like the fact that we have libraries of books and you have books in your house and we're so used to books. Like, well, the history of the book is the history of the Bible. Just the impact of Christ and his teaching in the world is undeniable. The one required thing and the hardest thing for people who aren't Christians to get over is the cross. This idea that a poor man in the Middle East 2,000 years ago had to die on your behalf
in order for you to be saved.
In order for you to be saved, it is the thing that seems to be, in my limited experience, the hardest things for people to accept that aren't Christians.
Yeah, it does seem an odd thing. You know, if God can do anything, and God can't do anything. God can't stop being God. But if God set up the world, obviously according to principles that come from his being, why does it require a sacrifice to cleanse away sin? I don't even know the answer to that. I mean, why? Because God said it does. Period. This word scandal comes from Luke 7:23, where Jesus says, "Blessed is he who does not take offense at me." And that take offense is scandalizo. How's that for a cool word? Scandalizo. He says, what is scandalizo? If you take the word to trap or to catch something, and to catch it so you can hurt it, not just to catch, and then to fall, like to your death, and you put them together, and you come up with a word that means to destroy yourself before God. It's like a religious destruction. And he's saying, blessed is the one who's not utterly destroyed because of me, at me. What does that even mean? What it means is, I mean, if you said that to me, don't let your soul be utterly destroyed because of me, Will. I'd be like, well, I don't even think it's an issue. I can just walk by you. I can ignore you. I don't even need to know you. And I think Jesus is saying you can't just walk by me. It doesn't matter when you're born, you can't just walk by me. You can't just say, I'm going to ignore him. Don't worry, I'm a Sikh, or I'm a Hindu, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm an atheist, or I'm an agnostic, or I'm a Jew who doesn't believe in Jesus. No. You can't do that. It will destroy your soul. Jesus is the soul destroyer. It's not really a good marketing campaign.
No, and I'm interested in your feedback here, but when I was talking about this with a couple guys and listening to your sermon and reflecting on another time that I had been taught about this word, because it seems like a self trap, like you're destroying yourself.
You are.
My mind automatically went toward the constant struggle to not self-justify. To me, like, that is the ultimate trap of most other world religions, and is even a constant struggle for Christians.
It is a constant struggle because justifying causes us not to admit our sin. But I don't think that's enough, because in context, he's saying to John pretty much, you have to get my identity right, or it's going to destroy your soul. Because in the context, John is asking, are you really the Messiah? John the Baptist, are you really the Messiah, or shall we wait for another? He goes, blessed is the one that doesn't destroy his soul over me. He's like, it's almost, hey, don't get this wrong.
Yeah.
Don't get this wrong. So there is a participation, self-destruction, and I get to choose what I'm going to do with Jesus. What do we make of Jesus is the right question, I guess. The scandal of the cross, though, sits at the middle. There's a lot of churches you can go to where they never even preach the cross and don't notice it. Good Bible-believing churches that will talk about the cross if you ask them about being saved, but almost never talk about it. And I think that's taken the power out. But there are a lot of churches that undo the cross altogether. The idea that it's a scandal, though, there's something I like about that. There's something attractive about that. To realize that we hold to something that is utterly offensive or utterly saving, and there's no middle ground. It's kind of exciting.
Why do you think people find it so offensive?
I have no idea. It's never offended me in a way that I've noticed. I've never. I mean, I went from not really understanding it to understanding it, and that's it. Okay, sounds like a good plan to me. He died for me. I can live with that. Well, so I don't even get why people are so offended by the cross.
Well, I get your point about
why don't people just receive Jesus? Why don't Muslims just receive Jesus? Why? What's so hard about Jesus, you Muslims? What's so hard about you atheists? I don't get why it's. I got no idea.
Well.
Why are atheists atheists? Why are agnostics agnostics?
Going beyond the text that you're actually looking at in the usage of that word, going back to why to me it brings up this idea of self-justification is, again, this is in my experience in dealing with unbelievers and the offensiveness of Jesus. The offense generally is brought up by the idea that you deserve to be on the cross, like the idea that
we're sinners.
Well, it's not just everybody knows that they're imperfect. If you describe sin for somebody as like, oh yeah, you've done things you regret or wish you hadn't or knew weren't right, yeah, they'll accept that. That's not necessarily a huge offense, but that because of that, you deserve infinite eternal punishment or this horrific death on the cross.
But you don't have to, like, you don't have to say that no one had to say that to me, that you deserve a death on a cross. They just say, look, you're a sinner and you're going to go to hell. I didn't have to imagine details or think about the cross at all.
Well, I have heard people imagine like this idea that, I'm a good person. I try to be a good person. Like, there's no way that's what I deserve. That is the offensiveness of Jesus, is that Jesus says, no, this is what you deserved, and I came here to do it. So you don't have to if you believe in me.
Okay.
Well, that's my takeaway, is that that is the stumbling block that I've seen.
You know, I guess the only stumbling block I see people do is much more pragmatic, much more practical. I'd rather sin. That's what I see. Because if you do come to Christ, he's going to change you. He's going to requires a repentance. I'd rather do the sin. They just ignore the punishment or whether they're bad. Okay, then I'll go to hell. I think it's almost a sophisticated argument for the people who've given it some thought to say, no, I'm really offended by this. But maybe not. Maybe some people are just like, hey, how dare you tell me I'm bad? Maybe that is really at the heart of it. I have no idea. So Peter says this. He says, he quotes the Old Testament, saying, behold, and this is 1 Peter 2:6, I lay in Zion a choice stone, a precious cornerstone, and he who believes in him will not be disappointed. So he's quoting Isaiah 28. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, behold, I am laying in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a costly cornerstone for the foundation, firmly placed. He who believes in it will not be disturbed. 28:16 of Isaiah. And so salvation comes in. So the picture of the stone here is one of a building. Okay, this is a building. And the building is solid. And Jesus is the solid stone on which the building is built. So the metaphor kind of takes a movement after that. It goes from a stone, which is lithos, like lithograph, to the stone which the builders rejected. This became the cornerstone. So there, he says that in verse 7. The precious value then is for you who believe, but to those who disbelieve, the stone which the builders rejected, this became the cornerstone. Which stone of Judaism is it that saves you? The one that the leaders rejected, the stone which the builders rejected. So the leaders of Israel had to reject Jesus to make him the right stone. Okay. Then it says, this is a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. And that offense word is that scandalon word. And so that's a quote from Isaiah 8:14. He shall become a sanctuary, but to both houses of Israel, a stone to strike against, a rock to stumble over, a snare and a trap. The scandal of Jesus, he's a scandal mostly to the Jews, I guess. Like to the Jews, how dare you, maybe it's a Jewish thing. Maybe it's how dare you throw out all our law and all our hard work at getting saved by saying you just need to believe in Jesus. Maybe that's the scandalous part.
See, and I feel like that ties right back into
to what you
legalism,
were saying.
the self-justification thing.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I don't know why people reject Christ. But I guess
I also think some of your pragmatic response to your experience and people just saying, yeah, but I want to keep sinning. I think some of the desire, or pragmatically in the desire to continue sinning, is you have to see your sin as not that bad, not worthy of this sort of punishment, or it would be harder to continue in it.
Sin is never worth what it costs, but we don't believe that in the moment we're sinning.
Right.
So there's an unbelief.
Yeah.
There was a Night Gallery or some other movie in the 70s where this guy cut a deal where he was going to quit smoking. And the guy guaranteed him if he paid him money, he would quit smoking. And the deal was if he smoked a cigarette, they were going to chop off the finger of his wife. And I could be getting the plot wrong, but it was something pretty close to that. So he snuck a cigarette at some point, and then his wife shows up and she's missing a finger. And so then they started to show, if you can't control yourself, this woman's going to keep losing her digits. Right? And that's pretty creepy. But that kind of reminds me now of what we're talking about. You don't really understand just how bad your sin is till people start chopping your wife's fingers off. Then you know.
Yeah, right.
So I don't but nevertheless it sets up the cross. For the Jews it's a stumbling block. It's foolishness for the rest of the world. So maybe it really is a very Jewish word to say it's foolishness for Gentiles. It's in any case, though, the whole world has a choice to make. It's not just us. It's not just Christians who choose and you guys choose something else. You will fall over Christ or you will not. Kind of like you said, there are people who still argue that Jesus might not be the most important person who ever lived. They're just not paying attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's completely infiltrated all of the nations in one way or another, and all our governance and all our thinking. The ethics of the world themselves, the things they value, are taken from Christ. Women's rights, children's rights, all this other stuff. They're twisted, they're messed up, but they come from Christianity. People don't want to be measured by Jesus Christ, but they're going to be.
Well, and the fact that the cross, I'm starting to talk like Joe Biden. I just keep saying the idea.
No,
the idea.
No, you gotta go. You have to say it like this. You got to say. So the fact of the cross is look. I don't want. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't say the fact. Look.
Okay.
And that's why children die. You gotta get mad for no reason.
Is the climax of the whole story. It's the point of the whole story. So we just, as a church, went through that he has a plan, the continuous story arc of the whole Bible, and the cross is the climax of the story. It's the solution to sin from the beginning. And I think it's important here to bring up not only that we keep.
So it's the solution to sin. Hold that thought. Let me develop that in my brain. And John the Baptist thought the solution to sin was killing sinners.
Yeah, judgment.
And Jesus said, no, that's not the solution, because he would have had to kill even John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Yeah, kill the bad guys.
John said, you sure you're the Messiah? Because I'm pretty sure you're supposed to show up with a rod and smash everybody.
Yeah, I've been a good boy, and I'm in jail. I could use some help. So, okay, you were saying then?
So it made me think of the two ordinances of the church, because I had this discussion.
Baptism and the Lord's Supper.
Yeah. So both of those ordinances, they're both cross-centered.
They're both death-centered.
They're both to remind us of the cross. I mean,
we have a very morbid religion now that you mention it.
Your baptism is this...
Death.
Is death, right? Which points you to the cross.
You're buried in baptism, the Bible says.
Yeah. Yeah, you died with him on the cross, and then you raised with him as he raised.
Yes.
Right? And then that's the same, the communion.
Somehow, him sharing our sin causes us to share him sharing his life with us. I mean, we get his life.
Yes.
Somehow.
We're living in him. We're found in Christ, in his life.
Because he died.
Because he died.
I don't know how that exchange works. Him bearing our sins means we bear his life. How's that? Go on.
It's the same with communion, right? It's the reminder is to remember the cross. But
you have to eat it.
Yes.
So that there's an internalization of sustenance. His death is your sustenance, because bread is for your body, wine is for your body, for life, right? Yeah. And
the wine is his blood, which had to be shed on
for life.
For life,
right.
For you to live, the cup of wrath had to be poured out on him. We talk about it as the cup of wrath.
So that's a very intimate. It implies an intimate relationship with Jesus. You can't just say, "Yeah, he was there." You have to receive him somehow. It's very intimate.
Yeah, and the heart of our whole religion is this very ghastly scene, like morbid scene.
Did you know in the first century that Christians were accused of being cannibals and of eating their babies at their love feasts? No kidding.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, the story of the bread and the wine turned into gossip and rumors, and it said that they used to do children sacrifice and eat children. We never did eat children, but they said all kind of awful things about us. A stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, for they stumble because they're disobedient to the word, and to this doom they were also appointed. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Yeah, I kind of like that. I like the status of knowing that I'm on top of the right mountain, that I can say to anyone, it doesn't matter if they agree with me or not, you've got to come to the same Jesus I'm with, and you can be saved or you can go to hell. And it feels good to be right about that. I don't know why. No matter what they say, you win the argument. Like, well, I don't have to come to Jesus. Well, you're wrong. I mean, maybe I just like winning arguments. It's just a very interesting thing. The watershed over which every human living on the planet will stand or fall is Christ. Period. That's just it. He's the only doorway to salvation. And if you won't go through that, you are going to be destroyed. And it's your choice. Anyway, this has been a very philosophical talk more than a biblical talk. But I don't know if it's helpful to... Do you think it's helpful to people to hear us ruminate on this? I hope so.
Here's why I think it is helpful.
Yes. Tell me why it's helpful.
Going back to this self-righteousness thing, because Christians are tempted with this at various points your whole life. Like, the beautiful part of the cross is that he did it all for you.
Yes.
Like the consistent reminder of communion, of being able to point back to your baptism, having those two ordinances being focused on the cross, is that even when you stumble and fail and let the old man back out, or don't win that fight with him in the moment, and you get angry or whatever, that it's not based on anything you did. I mean, that is the beauty of the cross, is that the work is done. It is finished once and for all.
And that's grace.
And that's grace.
And that's a picture from all the way back in Genesis, when Abraham was told to take Isaac up on the mountain and sacrifice his son. And as they were going up the mountain, the son said, Dad, I see the sticks for the fire. I see you have the fire. Seems like you got a nice sharp knife over there. Looks like we have everything we need for a good sacrifice. But what about the lamb? And Abraham said, God will provide the lamb. And the lamb was there when they got to the top. A male lamb, a ram, had his horn stuck in a thicket. And instead of slaying the son, get the ram. So the ram was sacrificed as a substitute for his only begotten son. And then God reverses that process for us. He puts his only begotten son there, and he calls him the Lamb of God. God will provide the lamb. God has provided the lamb. And really, maybe that's why it feels good to say it's right, because there's no self-righteousness in saying, I chose the right one. I mean, I'm with Christ. Come choose him too. Don't fall over him. Because he did it all. I'm like, I didn't do a thing. He did all the work. So, I mean, you can insult Jesus all you want. You're going to lose. He's perfect, and he died for you to show his love for you. You can't accuse him of anything. You say, well, he's not very nice. Well, he died for you. That seems pretty nice to me. Well, I don't want to believe in him. Okay. Blessed is the one who's not scandalized by me, is what he says. So don't be scandalized by Christ, folks. Humble yourselves and believe. All right. Well,
that's good.
Anyway, that was pretty much the sermon from last time I preached.
So that brings us to Bible study.
Yeah, which kind of we're doing there because that we dug in. But we're in chapter 8.
We're in Luke chapter 8.
Which has two really cool stuff, and they're both kind of for the people in the Navy.
Yeah, we're on a very familiar passage for most people.
Yeah, the first is verse 22. It says, now in those days, Jesus and his disciples got into a boat, and he said to them, let's go over. It'd be a big boat to get all 12 of them in there. Let's go over to the other side of the lake. So they launched out, and as they were sailing, he fell asleep, and a fierce gale of wind descended on the lake, and they began to be swamped and be in danger. Apparently, these storms can just zip up on the Sea of Galilee out of nowhere. And they were swamped, meaning water was coming in the boat and it was starting to sink. And they came to Jesus and they woke him up saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. First, Jesus is like are you a good sleeper, Cruiser? Like, can you sleep through stuff?
Generally speaking, yeah.
When I was a kid, man, I could sleep through anything. Like anything. People would tell me, did you hear the thunderstorm last night? No, I was asleep. I mean, anything could happen. You could probably just run a chainsaw and I would sleep through it. Jesus was a good sleeper. He was sleeping through a storm on a boat. Man, I get seasick on. Do you get seasick on boats?
I don't.
You don't? I do. But he just, the boat is going up and down. And I mean, do you think they didn't have plastic rain gear then? Do you think he'd be getting wet? How tired was Jesus? I mean, dang, he's tired. He's sleeping. The fierce gale of wind descended on the lake. They began to be swamps. That means water was coming in and they were in danger. And then they came to Jesus and they had to wake him up. He said, Master, Master, we are perishing. We're all dying. We're dying here. So I guess they're thinking that's it. You know, the ministry of Jesus is over. We're just going to drown right here. That's kind of how people die. It's just death kind of interrupts you. So they're perishing. And it says he got up and he rebuked the wind and the surging waves and they stopped and it became calm. That's a mind blower. You just stand up and say, stop. You know, the cool thing is you can always plan a picnic when Jesus is around. Because if he wants, he can just stop the bad weather. And he says, rebuke the wind and surging waves, and it stopped. They stopped, and it became calm. And then he said to them, where is your faith? For they were fearful and amazed, saying to one another, who then is this that he commands even the winds and the water to obey them? So their question was, did we just find out something new about our teacher, our rabbi? He can even stop the wind and the water. Now, he made the wind and he made the water. So it's really not that big a deal for him. he created these things. So he just stops it, but it blows them away because now they're knowing who he is. But his question to them is, where is your faith? They were afraid because they didn't have faith. Now, that's easy for us. I mean, are you ready to make fun of them for that? Cruz, I silently hear you judging them. Are you judging the apostles? Are you judging them? What do you think, Will? I mean,
I'm certainly not.
I mean, they're in a boat and the wind and the wave. I mean, Jesus is sleeping through water flying in his face. How tired.
Yeah,
they had a tarp over him or something.
He's a sound sleeper.
On a boat. And then they wake him up. Now, these are grown men.
And seamen.
Yeah, so they know what to do. But they literally think they're going to die. They're scared. And they wake him up and say, do something. So he does something, and then they're like, whoa, this is freaky. How did you do that? Well, you asked me. His question is, where's your faith?
This reminds me of a teaching you gave me years back.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Probably not.
You drew a teeter-totter on a piece of paper.
Ah, yes. So, the fulcrum of fear and faith.
Fulcrum of fear and faith.
Yes, 3 F's.
So if you have your good old, do people call it a teeter-totter anymore? What's it called? Seesaw.
Seesaw, teeter-totter.
Yeah.
Fulcrum. Who's that guy who called it a fulcrum? The old scientist guy.
I don't know.
Who was the guy who said that if I had a lever long enough and a fulcrum, I could lift the earth?
I don't know, but you could.
No one remembers that guy's name?
I know the saying, but I don't remember the guy's name. Anyway, so you have your seesaw, your teeter-totter, and you have fear on one side and faith on the other. And the point of the picture is that fear can't be elevated without faith being diminished.
Yes.
And as faith is elevated, fear is naturally diminished. They're linked over a fulcrum. And,
yes.
And
I remember, can do worry and worship that way too.
Yeah, worry and worship. And I remember your point was that an answer to almost any problem in your worldly life is that your God is not big enough.
That's right. That's from J.B. Phillips, wrote a little book called God is Too Small. And you don't have to read the book. That's what it says. It says whatever problem you're having is because you're defining God smaller than he is. And so they're afraid, and he says, where is your faith? Why are you afraid? Where is your faith is his issue. Now, I think it's reasonable to be afraid if you are a sailor and you're certain you're going to die in a storm, because it means
it's a big storm.
It's like if you're in a plane
and you're the pilot.
No, the pilot gets up and says, I'm pretty scared we're going to die. You're like, you're scared?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, then you're dying. So that's the way it is when the fishermen say that. And we're scared because we're about to die. What does Jesus mean when he says, where's your faith? What's the explanation?
Don't you trust me? Don't you know who you're with?
Don't you trust me?
Don't you know who you're with? Have you not seen enough at this point? Because that.
So does this transfer to people not on boats?
Yeah, that fear, faith thing. My initial pushback. I vaguely remember my initial pushback because kind of the question is like, well,
but what if?
But what if? What if I die? And then that point of, well, your God's not big enough. But I'm dying. Is
God bigger than death?
Is God bigger than death? Is death really that big of a deal if you have a big enough view of God? And that's kind of like the ultimate thing. That's what they're dealing with here. It's like if you get to the point where you're like, oh, this guy has the power over life and death.
Yes.
Why am I even afraid of dying?
Yes.
And he's shown that clearly already at this point because he's healing people and saving people. I'm lost. Has he resurrected anyone yet at this point?
Yes, he had already resurrected the widow of Nain's son.
There you go. So if you're with a guy who just raised a boy from the dead,
well, and
why would you be worried about anything?
So he's saying you should assume that if I'm there, Nothing's going to happen to you that I don't have a handle on.
Yeah.
And that translates to our lives. Nothing is going to come your way. That doesn't mean you'll overcome everything in the way you might want to overcome it.
Correct.
It just means, like, even when Jesus was arrested, the Bible says that he didn't lose a one of the apostles. Like, they weren't arrested. They weren't beaten. He looks after us all the time. We base our fear comes from a lack of certainty in the future, period. You're not certain you're going to be safe at some point in the future. It could be 1 second away, or it could be a lot farther away. And Jesus is like, I'm already in the future. I got this. And I think that's the application. And it's a beautiful application for us all. You worry about things, and God says, I'm already in the future. Yeah, but what if? You got to stop the yeah, but what ifs.
It's hard. Yeah, but what if is a favorite saying. Yeah,
but what if? I know, is a favorite. And normally you're looking for a logical answer to your yeah, but what ifs. And if you ask yourself, you go nuts. If you sit alone.
This is the anxiety loop we talked about, I don't know, a dozen episodes ago.
Yeah, but what if? So what people normally do is they externalize it. They say to someone else, hey, we're going to die. The boat's flying. They do their yeah, but what ifs out loud. And that, if you're not, sometimes that can take it away. The guy says, knock it off, you're fine. Oh, he's right. But if you're stuck with worrying, you think it's therapy for the other guy to help you, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help sometimes. The ultimate answer, is Jesus says, is I got this. I got you. I got this. So this is just a good thing to remember next time you're scared. Jesus saying, where's your faith? Have I got this or don't I have this?
Right.
And he said, well, what if he doesn't have me? Well, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the little bitty babies in his hands. He's got everything in his hands.
Yeah.
So how could he not have you? What if he lets me die? Well, then he's got death in his hand. He's got you. What if I don't want to die? Well, that's a whole different question,
Yeah. Well, the switching points here, I couldn't help but think, how thick are some of these apostles when I'm reading this? Only because, not that I would be any...
You wouldn't.
Be any
if
more...
you thought you were about to die?
No. But I love this last sentence, right? Who is this that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him? It makes me think to one of the original podcasts we had on Luke. It's in Luke... What is it, 4? When he makes the fish overwhelm Peter and Andrew and James and John's nets.
Yes.
And that's when they realize this guy's got
fish
command
powers
of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they follow him. And then they've seen so much in between that moment and now. I don't know. I kind of read this as maybe some of the apostles. I'm probably tainted because I've been watching some Bible cartoons with my toddler. And we just saw this exact passage, and Peter got it. The other apostles were, who is this guy? And Peter's like, I know who this guy is.
Maybe.
Because Peter had already seen the fish in the nets.
Well, I don't think that's right. But listen.
It's speculation.
But what if you've never been in danger?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
This is the first time that we see him in the gospel in danger. Everything else, hey, everything's fine because we have Jesus. They went from Joel Osteen preaching, I'm having my best life now, I have Jesus, to like the Puritans, I'm going to die. He's good to you all the time. And that leads me to, I guess, cultural things. This happens to be a strange period in the history of our country because we here in Western Pennsylvania just hosted the ex-president of the United States who was almost shot. And everyone I know is saying this is an act of God. The president said it's an act of God. President Trump said only God save me. Famous people are saying God saved him from that bullet, to which C.S. Lewis would argue, and has, about the very thing, about being someone whose loved one was missed by a bullet in World War I. He said, "Did you not know that your life is at every moment dependent upon God's graciousness?" So in one sense, President Trump was in no more in danger with that bullet going by him than if he's sitting in his home, safe in his bedroom, or at his dining table. We are always dependent on God for the next second of life. But when a bullet actually flies by, it reminds you
of that fact.
And if you're a bunch of people in a boat, you're like, it's easy to trust Jesus when the boat is not rocking. But when the boat starts rocking,
or when your ear starts bleeding,
and you hear the gun crackles, you realize, I really do depend on God. If you get that bad test at the doctor, or you get a little hypochondria, you're like, God, where are you? He's still there. Now you're going to have to check your faith. And so, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the attempt on.
So the bullet goes by President Trump's ear. And I think I don't think it's so much just God spared President Trump's life as everyone asked, what if he hadn't? God spared us all an unknown fate. And no one really knows what that is. People say there would have been mayhem. There might have been mayhem. There might not have been mayhem. We don't know what there would have been, but it definitely would have changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, we've been. It's a pretty recent event here, and it's going to stay recent. This podcast, I don't know how many, maybe a week will have gone by the time someone's hearing this, or maybe two, who knows? But this has really stirred up the world.
Stirred me up.
Now, it stirred up the whole world. In fact, it stirred up. Cruiser, have you got those little kids in Uganda that you could show? I got a video to show you guys of, and let's say today when we're recording, it's Wednesday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. And already, look, this is from Uganda. As soon as Cruz is ready with it, he can play
really
it.
see something that said, take a look at what happened.
That was pretty cool. I think if you do figure out the sound, you could play that one again. I really like that. That was, the little guys have the crackling down and the fight down. They are already in Uganda. Children are copying President Trump. It's funny because I've traveled in a lot of third world nations and places where they hardly have technology to build a proper house. Literally making houses out of straw. And they'd have a satellite dish outside of them. And that was the old days. Nowadays, they have Wi-Fi, no doubt. And so kids in Uganda have the technology to see Donald Trump. Donald Trump's now become a worldwide figure. Did you figure that out yet, Cruiser?
I'm trying.
Really yeah, play it again. I like this one. Let's watch it one more time. There the little dudes are. They hear the crackle. Down they go. Look. Notice there's no women. There's no women Secret Service in Uganda. Look at that little fella. He's like, fight. They go dragging him off to save him. That is so. They're wearing Crocs. They're wearing Crocs in Uganda. But that shows how this is really a worldwide event. But for us, it's local. It's local. Yeah. In fact, the man who died, is known by a lot of people in our community, even in our church. He was a fireman, and he was.
Yeah, his kids know some kids apparently related to to people in our church.
Yeah, he was a good, solid guy. Though he didn't go to our church, he was like 100 other guys in our church. Volunteered at the fire department. Well, actually, he didn't volunteer. He was paid. I think he was the chief, or it might have been a volunteer position. Is it?
I don't know.
Either way, we have a lot of people like that around. There's a lot of fire departments here, and he's a good man. Went to church, and obviously he died out of love for his wife and daughter. He wasn't the only one who jumped on his loved ones right away. Many did to cover them, but he was unfortunately in the path of a bullet, to which you can say, okay, why did God let that happen? We know why, because God is good and it was the right plan. We wish that man were still alive. Obviously, we wish that bullet had missed. We wish there'd been no shooter, but there was. But reflecting on all that, I think one of the things that stands out to me is, I mean, me and you got nothing to add, right? I mean, as far as everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, there's an insane amount of expertise review and people talking about everything. I mean, I have a few comments I'd like to make, but yeah.
Well, go ahead and make them.
Well, we were talking before.
Go in the other direction. Go ahead. Make them.
The question kept coming up is like, why does what happened immediately after with Trump raising his fist and saying fight, why does that resonate so much? It resonated with me. It's clearly resonated with a lot of other people, as we will see. And I think a podcast I was listening to, a very famous podcast, a guy named Chris Williamson, I think he said it best. He said, in his mind, this was the first inarguable moment of Trump's admirability. Like that that it was an admirable moment. Like everything else Trump has said or done that you may like or despise or whatever, but here was a undeniable moment of something you could admire. Like a man who just got shot at.
Well, that's interesting. You
clipped
say
in the head, and he still wants.
Is it admirable though? Are other things he's done not admirable?
Yeah,
this guy thought so. But he's had to do other admirable things.
He's had but
like he did the Abraham Accords. I admired that. He cut my taxes. I admired that.
I know, but others would say those are. This moment of admirability, I can't even say the word I want to say. I don't even know if that is a word. Certainly struck a deeper chord with more people than the Abraham Accords.
I think you're right. It did. And I think that what this guy's trying to express, whoever Chris Williams is that it did seem to cut through and get a lot of people's attention. I want to, if Cruiser, you ready? Do you got that blonde woman? Could you play that? I want to.
Before you do
though, Cruiser, let's listen to Will.
No, what I think and why I think that moment resonated so much is because it revealed that it can't all be an act.
I see.
Like here we are.
There's authenticity and integrity.
It absolutely had to be
the real guy.
The real guy. Like you just almost died by a centimeter, a half an inch, and your head would have exploded. Like if you were going to fold under pressure, say, I don't really want to do this anymore.
He'd fall on the ground, suck your thumb, and
get carried off
like yeah,
and run away.
Like a dog.
It was it showed that it's not just all.
This is who he really is.
Yeah, it's not just all a facade. This is really, there's a real man in there.
Well, you see, there's a guy out in California interviewing people, and they're all saying it was a fake.
It was a fake.
It was
because
a setup.
Of that moment. Yeah, I have seen that video.
Oh my gosh, these people are insane.
So I think that's why it resonated so much.
Well, let me show you some resonation that hit right away on TikTok. It became a creative point right away. So hit it when you're ready there.
Hey, Trump got shot at. Got shot at? Trump got shot at. So, like, did he? Oh, yeah, he lived. Huh. Yeah, and what's worse is he looked really cool when it happened. What do you mean he looked cool when it happened? He unfortunately looked very cool when it happened. How do you look cool getting shot at? Well, like what did he do? Pop right back up with blood streaming down his face, pumping a fist in the air, shouting USA, USA, USA until a crowd of thousands joined in? That's exactly what he did. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I know. Crap. We're gonna lose the election, huh?
He's like, crap.
And that's what I mean. It's just like, it's undeniable. I mean, how many people, like the whole fight or flight or freeze thing is something you don't really get to pick if you've ever been in a situation where your body takes over and you have one of those three reactions, fight, flight, or freeze. You don't always get to pick which one.
Well,
you can through training. But like, how many people on the planet, after being in their first scenario where bullets are flying at them, I'm sure this is probably Trump's first time. I've never had bullets fly at me.
So there's a male-female thing too. Those were women calling it cool. The video showed some of the Secret Service women who perhaps didn't look so
cool.
Yeah, no, maybe they were inside. Maybe they were filled with courage, but they look kind of wimpy there.
Yeah, the one behind the stage, especially.
Yeah, I didn't know about this. Will was telling me there's one behind the stage. Two behind the stage, you said.
Two, and one stayed there the whole time.
Yeah, well, hey, if things are getting rough, you got to hide behind the stage. But the masculine part of this, I think, is what stands out. Those little boys in Uganda, why did that appeal to little boys in Uganda? There's all kinds of violence you can watch on television, or heroes, true, kinds of heroic things you can find online. But to see a real life presidential candidate stand up and say, fight, 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 these little boys in Uganda were copying it. It didn't really need a lot of explanation in one sense, because you feel like, yeah, of course they were.
And what I think of in retrospect is this idea that is, I think, a healthy masculine teaching that we don't get much, is that, and I'm trying to think of the movie phrase, but it's, some things in life are worth dying for. What is it? There's worse things in life.
There's worse things in life than dying. That was from Open Range.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's worse things in life than dying. And I think that's an inherently masculine teaching that,
I think so. Women want safety. Now, I'm not saying that women won't die for what they believe in. In fact, women can often be fiercer than men if they think something's attacking their brood.
Yes.
But even so, they're looking for safety. The motherly instinct is to protect and keep everyone safe, and don't do anything that's dangerous. Like if what's his name, Trump's mother was there, she must have said, "Stay down, Donnie." He's like, "No, I'm not staying down. I'm coming up on this thing. We've got to fight." Let me show you again another female reaction. Could you play Megyn Kelly? Because beautiful Megyn Kelly. I love Megyn. She's my girl. She is just. I've always loved Megyn. Even when Trump hated Megyn, I loved Megyn. I just always thought she was sharp, and she's a great fighter herself.
And that brings us to the moment that will go down in history. As the agents attempt to move him, Mr. Trump tells them to wait. And with blood dripping down his face, he lifts his fist into the air, the same fist that just touched his bloody head, where he took a bullet that grazed his upper right outer ear, and mouths the words, "Fight."
Wait.
He understood on some internal level what they needed and what the rest of us needed. Who would have the presence of mind and the courage to do that? I heard someone online, he reacted the way every man alive wishes and hopes and prays he would react. Our country still does value courage, bravery, resilience, temerity, strength. And it's one of the reasons people love Trump. He's the embodiment of it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by the fight or flight thing is, like she said, I do think most men, if not all men, hope they would react like that, but you don't get to actually pick as someone who's been in some of those circumstances.
Oh, if you're scared, you never know for sure how you're going to act.
You never know how you're going to act. And so it was it's revelatory. It's a revelation of the actual man on the inside that was his response, his natural response. That's not.
Now, she says every man would want to react like that.
Yeah.
And she didn't say, she meant man. She didn't mean man or woman. The masculine.
Well, yeah, because my wife would have said the rational thing to do is like belly crawl off the back of the stage and roll into the grass.
Is that what your wife said?
No, I mean, but that was what she would say, right? She thinks, like you said, safety first, safety minded.
Yes. So he really, there's a lot of videos I did not send over because I don't know if they can get the cussing out, but there's a lot of very masculine responses to Trump getting shot online. And like, there was this one dude who the very day got a tattoo on his back
of the photo
with a flag and him standing this, and he was losing his mind. He was drunk that when the video was made, and he said, "I don't care what nobody says. That's a man," and he was really in the masculine there. I heard several, let's say, black people from a gangster perspective. Now, not all blacks are from a gangster perspective, and I saw blacks who weren't gangster, just to get all that out there. But literally a gangster perspective, kind of saying, he's one of us now. He's taking a shot, and they're saying stuff like, he's harder than the rest of you, let's call it boys from the hood. You know, he's taking a shot, and he didn't cry. He got up, and he's won a lot of masculine. He got man points. You know, they say you have a man card. He got all kinds of man points from standing up and saying, fight, fight, fight. What do you think he was trying to say? Why do you think he stood up and said fight? Who the heck was he talking to?
I don't know what was going through his mind. Conjecture is, this is how bad they want us to lose, whoever us is, right? And whoever they are. But don't be coward by it, right? Don't cowtail to being pushed around.
Let me jump in on this and let's go backwards. I was listening to a guy named Clavin talk back in 18, 19. People were saying, a lot of people were against Trump then. And he was saying, you know what I like about Trump? He says, forget all the bad tweets and whatever else. He fights. I remember Clavin said that. He fights. And what he meant was he fights for what he believes is right. In our case, I do think there is a huge group of Americans, and I would be lying if I didn't say I'm part of them, who believe our voices haven't been heard, who believe we've been ignored. I think the whole Tea Party movement was not. Other people can interpret it any way they want. The way I interpret it was people saying, you've been ignoring us. We said we don't want more spending, and you're bailing out banks. We said we don't want Obamacare, and you're shoving it down our throats. We said we don't. We want certain. No one listens to us. I think that was a whole Tea Party movement. Trump comes up and he says, I'm hearing you. I think that's what he tapped into. I hear you. I know what you want, and I'm listening, and I'm going to fight for it. And he actually fought against a lot of good things. He fought against abortion, and he fought against human trafficking, and he tried to build a wall. He always fought. But then when they tried to destroy him,
just made him fight harder.
You know, a lot of lesser people would say, I give up. This is just too much.
Not worth the effort or the cost. I should say the cost.
It's not worth the cost to go through this. Imagine the Russia hoax thing. It turned out the whole thing was a hoax. and he just fought back. He acted like that didn't happen. And then what else came his way? Then they impeached him. That didn't work. He went through the election, and we know a lot of that was rigged. I'm not saying he didn't lose the election. I think he legally lost the election, but there was so much cheating going on. There's the cheating over big tech censoring things, getting rid of the laptop and from hell, as it was called, and lying about him all over the place, and then all the ballot boxes and the ballot harvesting and all this weird stuff. And so he got out. But he just kept fighting. He never quit.
Well, and then fast forward, now they're
the lawfare. Yeah,
now they're charging him with a bunch of frivolous crimes that aren't even crimes, and in those proceedings they take most of his money away.
For goodness sake, taking money. Oh my word. They're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Over nothing. Thank you. Hundreds of millions of dollars over nothing. And
it doesn't make him want to.
He doesn't
retreat.
Quit. He just doesn't quit.
And now in this, the ultimate display of
they
I'm
try
not
to
giving
take
up,
his life.
they try to take his life,
and he stands up. And I think here's what I take as an American. What he's saying to me is, you fight. Yeah. You stand up and fight for what you think is right. Don't give up just because of what they're saying to you. And I have a true appreciation for that.
Yeah.
And I think he's rallying people, but I think there is true masculine leadership going on. It's man support. I also do think he's breaking through to a lot of black males. And if there's one group of people who has been minimized by popular culture more than anyone, it's because it's white males, but we're the target of, we're the face of all evil. But at least we're the face of evil. The black male has been completely diminished. He's always put under his wife. Black women are always promoted to the highest. If you want to be a big shot and black, you almost have to be gay or gay approving. Like you had, all of a sudden Dwayne Wade became big because he let his kid become a transsexual or whatever. But and then they mix civil rights with LGBTQ plus, as if it's the same thing to be bisexual as it is to be black. It's not. It's not. What was done to blacks in our country in the 1700s and 1800s and early 1900s was worse. I mean, they were slaves. To say it's the same as not being allowed to marry someone of the same sex is not close to true. And so the black man has been diminished utterly. And and I think they're hungry for masculinity. And I think that's why black men are coming around faster than black women towards Trump. I sent a few videos. I don't know if you got them. He said Cruiser's going to try to bleep some of these out. If he can't,
I'm trusting you, Cruz.
You won't see him at all. But if you see any of those last few I just sent you, just play them, and we'll see them.
I'm waiting on them to download.
Oh, he hasn't got them. That's okay. If he gets them, he'll play them. But
all three?
Yeah, just start play one, and we'll talk about it.
Right, I got one ready,
and I'll send you another because I got another one for you. He says he has it ready, but does he?
Crazy going on for real. Hold on. What? They just shot at Trump. Who? They just shot at Trump. The Trump. Man, slap this nigga. I need me another stimmy, boy. Come on, let's go. Hey, Trump 2024.
So here's two black dudes who are, and they made this right away. For those of you who are like, I don't understand what just happened there. That's okay. I'll explain it to you. They were acting like Trump is their homie. Okay, he's in their gang, and if somebody shoots at somebody in your gang, you get your weapons. Say it as white as possible here. You get your weapons and you get in your car and you drive to go defend your guy. Those two guys were saying, what? They shot at Trump? Play next one if you have it.
Ain't gonna lie, that boy Trump a thug, man. He a thug. He took that lick on the ear and kept pushing. Whoever tried to shoot at him didn't use their dominant eye. And you know they ain't never went hunting. Day in their life. They just went to the store and bought it.
Now there's a country boy.
Just never used it for practice.
But he's got...
He didn't even know what the dominant eye was. He used that cloudy eye. That one that you got to rub like this before you shoot. This was a mixtape cover, man. Trump had the hardest mixtape cover this year. This man went to jail and got shot. It's so bad. When he got hit, he took it like a little paintball. He took it like a paintball, like he got out. Like, oh, I'm out. They wanted to make sure Trump wasn't no pack. Well, you see how they got on top of him? Boy, they was on top of him like stank on.
Okay.
They made sure Trump wasn't going to be no pack.
That's enough of that one. So what you're seeing is, now these are, I'm not saying this depicts all black people. Trust me, it does not. There are a lot of very articulate, educated, not from the hood black dudes who are very much waking up to a different political view. They're leaving the Democratic Party, and Trump is part of doing that. But the reason I show this is the popular impulse. And I think from both whites and blacks. You got that white guy with the tattoo on there? I think you can get rid of his... Yeah, you can get rid of his bad words. Did I send it to you?
Yep, I believe you did.
All right. If I did, go ahead, and if I didn't, fine.
What up, everybody?
Oh no, these are
in the building.
This is good.
Latinos in the house.
These are the Latinos.
So we've been getting a lot of emails from different labels, people trying to sign us, people offering us thousands of dollars, hundreds and thousands of dollars to stop making this Trump music. But should I tell them?
Let's tell them.
We ain't going nowhere, baby. We signed to Trump. I guess I'm MAGA.
Let's get it.
So there's some Latinos too, but again, notice the cultural world from which they come from. Those are heck, I've got Mexican blood in me, and I've never been a gangster, but that's definitely the gangster culture. Latinos for Trump, they're doing it. There's a masculine impulse to all these. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I want Cruiser to play this open range clip because I think it encapsulates the fight. The American.
Did you send it to him?
I did send it to him.
Man, we're keeping him busy today.
I know.
And you guys who like videos better than us, you should be happy today too. If you're to this point, we got a lot of videos for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the call here in this clip is, well, you're men, ain't you? Because the context of the clip is, the bad guys running roughshod over the town, and they're like, well, we're just store clerks, and I didn't raise my boys to get shot and have to bury them. I'm not going to stand up to this guy. If he's going
to play it, you can't.
I'm giving the
it.
context.
Oh, okay,
I'm giving the context.
Okay,
so that's the context.
I got you. He may not have it though. He likes my clips better than your clips.
You send him ahead of time.
Well, as he's looking at these things, I'll just say this is, I appreciate the call, whether it's Trump or not Trump. I don't think Trump's the only one who's been saying it. Trump is just a leader who we can rally behind if we want to. And I'm not talking about evangelism or anything like that. I'm just talking about the problems of our nation. It's the men who are going to have to stand up and do something. The men have to take it seriously and say, we can stop. A society gets the crime it tolerates. If
it gets the government it deserves.
If you're getting fentanyl killing your people, it's because you tolerate fentanyl. If you're getting porn all over the place that's ruining your daughters and your sons and child porn, it's because you tolerate it. We get the society we tolerate. And I remember going into Indonesia once, and on the way in through customs into Bali, there was a sign that said no pornography and no illegal drugs, punishable when found by death.
And did they have a problem?
Not inside that, not in Bali they didn't. In fact, I was throwing Tums out of my bag before we got to that Visa counter. I was if I had anything that looked like a drug, I was getting rid of it. So you get the crime you tolerate, and it's the men who have been tolerating the degradation of our society, and it's the men who have to stand up. Go ahead with it. Whatever you got next, we'll react to.
Seemed like a nice young feller.
Shame what this town has come to. You
could do something about it.
What? We're freighters. Ralph here's a shopkeeper.
You're men, ain't you?
I didn't raise my boys just to see him killed.
Well, you may not know this, but there's things that gnaw at a man worse than dying.
Yeah, that's perfect, actually, Will. That's perfect. Their town is going to pot, and the reason they don't want to face it is because the cost is too high. But men are made to pay high prices. If you raise them up, they'll do it. If you call men to it. Sure, there was some who won't, but most men will if you stand up. So I think what Trump represents is in a world where most men are soft. At least those who lead us are soft. They're not willing to risk, not willing to take a chance, not willing to fight against mask mandates even, you know. Most men are soft. If someone stands up and says, well, I'll fight, other men say that's what I was waiting to hear. And they rally to it. I think there's a crisis of manhood in our country in many ways. And it's just interesting to see people responding to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got any more on that, or?
Nah, we can forget the manhood part here, but let me show you at least one more. There's one called "Winning Over Undecided Voters," and again, I want you to watch the reaction that comes from people because they saw men get shot. I didn't have as much reaction, by the way, when he stood up and said "fight" and put his fist up. I thought it was cool. But my opinion on the man had already been formed, so I'm like, okay, that's cool too. It didn't surprise me. You know what I mean? I thought he's obvious. I thought he was a fighter before because nothing. I was already amazed by the court cases when they came after him with that E. Jean Carroll, who I didn't think he raped. In fact, he was found innocent, he was found not guilty of rape, and then she seems like a faker and clowning around and not a serious person if you look into depth on her online, which I did. And yet they gave her how much? $200 million of his money.
Yeah, something crazy.
When they did that silly thing where the bank, where they say he
misrepresented the value of his company
of Mar-a-Lago, which was the dumbest thing in the world, and for that she wanted $500 million or something like that. And I thought, and he still fights. I think this guy will not quit. So it doesn't shock me that if he got hit in the ear, you're going to have to hit him. No, I don't. No, don't hit him. I almost said something to get me in trouble. He's not gonna. He reminds me of Brett Favre. That's what I always liked about Brett Favre. I hate the Green Bay Packers because I'm a Viking fan, and I used to hate Brett Favre. But well into his career, I changed my mind. Probably it was the game he played on Monday night after his father died, and he threw for like 1 billion yards, like 5 or 6 touchdowns, and he never missed a game. And I thought, I can't hate this guy anymore. He's a man. In fact, he never missed a single game till the last game where he got hurt. They took him out and he never went back in again. He was literally, you're not getting me off a football field till you pry the football off my cold, dead fingers. And that's what Trump is like. He's like, I'm not going to quit till I'm dead. And so, but a lot of other people didn't seem to have that point of view of him. And so anyway, you got that one video, the guys? Go ahead, play that.
I wasn't going to vote this year, but I am now.
Do you think this is like determining you to vote?
Yeah, because if he shows that he's willing to put his life in front of our country like that, then I feel like he should be the president no matter what.
Do you know anybody who maybe wasn't planning on voting and now they're voting for Trump, or anybody that swayed their opinion?
I'm not gonna lie, me.
Does it currently sway who you support to be president?
There's some white people. They're going to get burned.
A little bit.
I know the votes are definitely going to be changing in the next few months, but...
You think so? You think this will sway people?
Definitely.
Do you guys know of anybody who has been influenced to vote for Trump after this, or any of you guys?
Yeah, everybody. Definitely me.
Yeah? Were you not going to vote before?
I wasn't gonna vote at all, but that sealed it right there.
Yeah, so you're voting Trump?
Trump gets it.
All right, awesome. Is there anybody else you know that has the same opinion?
Pretty much all my friends.
Actually, that's enough. It's a long video. It's all just like that. But so what these young people are saying is it's not policy. They're not voting pro-life or pro-choice. They're not voting high taxes, low taxes. They're not voting foreign policy. The things that concern me is not affecting them. What's affecting them is what?
Demonstration of
manhood.
Yeah. Leadership. I don't know.
The willingness to die for what you believe in. I think that was the strength of MLK. He said a man who doesn't have something worth dying for has nothing worth living for. That's a bold statement. And then he proved it by dying for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon, Will, that I think is just we're living in the middle of it. And since Butler is where this grand event happened, I mean, that's our hometown. I guarantee you there were a lot of men in that crowd who were made of the same stuff. Now, whether they could put up with all the lawfare and all without losing their minds, I don't know. But I bet you there's a lot of men who were in that crowd who would have stood in front of a bullet for their loved ones. And if they thought their home was threatened, they just stood up and fought. I think we live among rural folk, at least in this area. I just think we're privileged. We have a lot of good Christian men and just a lot of good courageous men around us.
I agree.
So anyway, we're all going through this one together, folks. I do want you to know, though, that what's most important to me here is Jesus Christ, and that Trump actually gets really downright saved. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah.
I got more to talk about, but let's put that off till next time, because I'd like to talk a little bit about the Republican National Convention, because interesting cultural things are happening there, but they can wait. Even though it'll be in the rearview mirror when we talk about it again, it's okay, because I think the cultural things go farther than that, and we can talk about them later. But there's always time to get to these subjects.
Yeah. Well,
although I would like to say this about wokeness. Wokeness does seem to be getting its butt kicked too. Did you know that Tractor Supply had a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion deal? And
I did hear this.
They tried to roll out some pride stuff, and there was such reaction against them online that they fired their DEI people and said, we're not doing any of this stuff.
Microsoft just canned theirs.
I heard that. Microsoft just tried to quietly fire their DEI department. Now, for those who may not know, this diversity, equity, inclusion really is not about hiring fairly or fairness. It's about a Marxist worldview that says white people are bad and you need to replace them with anyone who's seen as a minority. And this is not about black folks. It's about black and white. That's only the tip of it. It's about, go ahead, gay, women, transsexual, whatever.
And I would argue that
it's about Secret Service.
Well, and that's all just a facade anyway. What it really is the Soviet mindset back again, because it's not really about black and white or gay and straight. It's about, are you a party member or not? Because if you're Douglas Murray, who's a guy we played a video on here when Israel got attacked last October, he's gay. But he does not agree with all their ideology, and so he's not a party member.
That's
so
a good
he would
man-
never. So
good point.
just because you're black, they say it's about black and white or about minorities, but it's really are you a party member or are you not a party member?
Will you go along with everything we say and do?
So going along with the program.
So what
or
happened
not?
was the financial investment DI was huge because the people who think like this had so infiltrated our government and our institutions for so long that they were actually taking government money and creating DEI positions. Like you might have seen, actually Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania was big on this stuff, and he's the one who thrust Rachel Levine, this dude who thinks he's a woman who's awful, as the health inspector or whatever. And then he became the national health weirdo. And then Trump, and I mean, we had Jean Pierre, whatever, the first black lesbian woman. We have all these. It's not a matter of people being different. It's a matter of when the brass tacks come, merit or proficiency versus identity in a certain card-carrying club. So the person who's best suited for the job is not what matters. So they used government to push it, but then they also used a lot of on-purpose pushing in corporate boardrooms. If you buy stocks, you can get on a board, and huge corporations are controlled by people who are woke, and they have to keep them happy. And so companies they hire a DEI department. In other words, one day there is no DEI department. Next day you hire an officer who's the head of DEI. And it may be one person in HR who goes around looking, is anybody being religious? We got to stop them. Got to stop the Christians. Is there any expression that we don't like? And are we celebrating pride? But it could be an entire department of people. And you know who got hit the most was universities, literally spending millions of dollars on DEI departments to make sure everyone conformed and fell in line. And now Cruiser just said Microsoft, which is as woke, DEI, they're getting rid of their DEI staff. Why? Because when you put people in place who aren't necessarily qualified, the doors fall off your planes and things.
Yeah, it's unsustainable.
Yeah, and if people have a choice as customers, they're going to say, I didn't come to Tractor Supply so you could tell me that my child can change sexes or to tell me about your sex life. In fact, the last thing I think about in a Tractor Supply is your sex life, another person's sex life, or even my sex life.
I'm trying to buy chicken feed and barbed wire.
Or yeah, I'm buying a tool. I'm thinking I'm bringing tires and lawnmower blades. If lawnmower blades make you think of your sex life, you've already got problems. Man, I do not need a pride flag at Tractor Supply. Well, John Deere just got smashed too. Did you know that?
No.
They just, this guy Robbie Starbuck started a campaign on X against them, and they just today put out a letter saying, okay, we're backing off too. So woke is kind of going backwards. We need to keep it going backwards. We need the men to stand up and say no more of this crap. You know, where we really got to get it out of is the government, especially our schools. The Department of Education here in Pennsylvania is disgusting. The Department of Education in Harrisburg is disgusting. That what they're pushing through on us is disgusting.
And it's reaching your school district.
And you know why? Because the men in your school district who don't agree with it haven't got the guts to stand up because they're afraid they'll lose their jobs. The principals, the superintendents, they're not going to stand up and say no because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. And I'm calling out their manhood. If you're a man, the women, whatever.
There are things that gnaw a man worse than losing your job.
It's just a job. Stand up and say no to Harrisburg. I'm going to protect the school because men on school boards have gotten no guts. That's why. And we need to get more men on our school boards. If I wasn't a pastor, I would be running for office to fight this fight. I still think about it, but I'm not about to do it because I think it would put me at cross purposes.
You hit the nail on the head before, though. It's you get what you tolerate.
You get what you put up with. That's
that
right.
video clip of the cowboys, it's like, well, you're men, aren't you?
You're men, aren't you? Hey, what's happening to my town?
Well, you could do something about it.
And there are people who do something about it. Hey, do you know the president of El Salvador?
No, you're so up. I'm not up on any of this
The president of El
stuff.
Salvador is a Christian now. And I mean, he's a young man. And he has made his country the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. Why does that matter? It's El Stinkin' Salvador. It was the most dangerous place, right? It's where
that's Central America next to Nicaragua, right?
Yes, but you take the entire Western Hemisphere. He has killed how did he do it? You can listen to his. He does an interview with Tucker. It's awesome, and he pretty much says it's a spiritual battle, and we have Jesus on our side, and we fought, and we put an end to it. And what did they do? They got all the cartel members and all the drug dealers and all the whatevers and threw them all in jail. And was it easy? No. Did it cost him? Is he risking his life? Absolutely, he's risking his life. Did he do it? Yes, he did it. Men need to stand up and be men for the society to work. Someone might be saying, well, what's the role of the women? That could be for another podcast. I'm not talking to the women at all today on that. I'm talking to the men. And men need to stand up. That's what you're made for. We're made for this. We are willing, if we reach inside, to stand on true things. We're meant to. We need a reason to be that's bigger than us, or we become useless.
Yeah.
Useless video game playing, bar stool planting losers. And by the way, I like video games.
Bar stools are nice.
I like sitting. If I'm in a bar, I'd rather sit on a stool than the floor. That's not the point. The point is, where is your life? Where is your meaning? Anyway, I don't know how I went there, but let's finish this up with a question.
We have a question.
We have a lot of questions to the pastor. We're still working on one guy's questions. We got a guy named Josiah who's asked us so many questions that this is like our third podcast. We're still on Josiah's questions. We should call this the Josiah.
Ask your pastors. Josiah asks his pastors.
Josiah Thompson asks his pastors. Well, we're giving away who he is, so now you know.
Okay, so I got a bunch here. Which one you want to touch on? We got swearing and bad words.
Let's do that one. That's a nice, easy one, and my brain can handle that, I think.
Okay.
What do you say about swearing?
So it's basically looking for practical advice, practical wisdom for young people on a myriad of topics, one of them being your language. So is swearing okay? Or I'm gonna paraphrase, put my own spin on his question. Is the heart of the matter when it comes to bad language?
Wait. I think you have to read his question.
He said, I'll read it verbatim.
Okay.
Is swearing okay, or is it the heart that matters? For example, is saying son of a bee the same as saying son of a gun?
And that's the whole thing?
Depending on, and I would add, or is it what your heart is feeling when you say either one? Like could be saying son of a gun be just as bad as son of a bee, or son of a bee just as innocent as saying son of a gun. Is what really matters the feeling you have when you say it, or is it the language, or is it both? How do you suss out the use of the language versus the emotion you're putting towards the language, I think is the thrust of his question.
Well, I think underlying that question, or the air in which, the atmosphere in which that question lives, I understand. And that is, growing up an American, my parents taught me there were a list of words we don't say.
Yeah, me too.
Especially as kids.
Soap was involved.
Yeah. Did you have your mouth washed out with soap?
Yes.
How many times?
It was predominantly one of my friend's mothers that loved that technique, and it didn't take very many times for me. But I watched
your friend's mother washed out your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's bad.
Yeah.
So my mother used a bar soap on me once, scraped it on my back teeth.
Yeah.
Now later, several years later, I think I back-talked her. I don't think I said a bad word, which was even worse to her. And she poured liquid soap, which I thought this would be easier. It is worse.
It coats your mouth.
Oh no, it's so the taste of Dawn dishwashing soap. Oh, and she made you hold it in your mouth for a while. Then you had to spit it out.
I had hand sanitizer on accident because my mom thought it was soap.
Oh, well, great. She almost killed you with, your mother almost killed you. So, but apparently Dawn, you can take a punch of. And if you try, first, what do you think happens when you wash your mouth out after you spit it out?
Bubbles.
It just bubbles up. And you're like, you do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And it still tastes like that. It's horrible. So there's a list of words you can't say. There's the D word, like damming up the water.
Mm-hmm.
There's the female dog word. For us, there was the donkey word, the jackass word. There was the poo-poo word that starts with S. There was
fornication.
The F word. Actually, the F word was not as big a deal when I was a kid. Like, it didn't even occur to me to say it when I was little because we didn't hear it till I was about 5th or 6th grade. So I guess I still was a kid, but when I was a little kid, I don't know, it wasn't on our TV. It didn't. But the other words my mom all said. That's why I was familiar with them. My mom would say all these words. You couldn't
do as I say, not as I do.
And you know what? It never bothered me. It was just like bedtime. I had to go to bed at 7 or 8. She got to stay up as late as she wanted. I couldn't say those words. She could say those words. And I never saw the duplicity of it as a kid. And we weren't allowed to cuss at all. And no explanation was given and no explanation was needed. As a child, you're like, you're not allowed to say those words. Why? They're bad words. I mean, do you remember having a philosophical problem with that when you were 5 and 6 and 7 years old?
Nope.
Well, it's actually, there's something nice about rules like that. You don't sit and ask, where did these words come from? Obviously, Josiah Thompson does and drives his parents crazy.
I got some of this explanation from a nun. So my first grade teacher was a nun, the last living nun at a Catholic school. And somebody said a bad word in class, to which he got a ruler to the hand.
There's a cliche for you, baby.
This was a reality. I was maybe the last generation. She was 100 if she was 50. And but
if she was 100 if she was 50.
she explained
she was still swinging though.
She explained the damnation word to us because I think that was the one used.
Okay.
And she took it as blasphemous because you were commanding God to do something that only He had the authority to do. That His is the judgment seat, and you're
now that's deep.
Commanding Him.
That is deep. So when I became a Christian, by the time I hit 6th grade, 7th grade, we all just cussed all the time.
Oh yeah.
But when I got home, you just turned it off.
Yep.
Just turned it off. But by the time I left home at 17 and then was on my own for a while, there was no filter. No filter. I even had a girl I once given a ride home. It was not personal. It wasn't a love thing. I worked at a place. She wanted to go home. She didn't have but a few blocks to go, so I'll give you a ride. She made me stop and let her out of the car because she said my language was so bad. I was thoroughly entertained by that. I loved it. I thought, this is hilarious.
Like, it didn't even occur to you that your language that was just normal.
No. And then I became a Christian when I was 19, and I realized I need to stop cussing. No one told me stop cussing. But when you go to church, no one cusses. So I realized, obviously, they use parent rules here.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it was really hard because once you're in the habit, it's really, really hard. But I remember doing it. So that's where we grow up in. But then when I became a Christian and later I'd run into Christians say, I use substitute words. I would use substitute words to cuss. Do you ever do that?
Yep.
What are some substitute words you like?
I have a favorite one. It's my wife's.
What is it?
Mother Goose.
Mother Goose.
Like when she stubs her toe or something on a chair, she'll say Mother Goose.
And now you say it. It's called.
I just think it's hilarious.
For years, I would say rats. Oh, rats. I'm down with gosh. Dang. I love dang. Son of a motherless goat.
But I've heard a lot of what I think are convincing arguments that going to Josiah's point here, that's really just a lazy workaround or a.
Well, I've been told that too. And that's what I was going to say. Christians started saying you can't say gosh because you're just using God's name in vain, and you can't say dang because you're just saying damn, and you can't say
like you're not actually controlling your speech. Like you are, but only partially.
You can't say son of a motherless goat. No one ever said that. I think you can say son of a motherless goat because I got that from the Three Amigos. And Steve Martin is son of a motherless goat, and I like that. He called these nasty banditos. He says, "You sons of motherless goats."
So the heart of the question is it the heart posture that matters, or the actual word?
So what do you?
Or a combination?
What do you get if you cross a hippopotamus, an elephant, and a rhino? Hell if I know. That's my answer. No, that's not my answer. I'm just kidding. I actually have thought about it a lot. And I'm probably more situational because I got to look at what the Bible says. And the Bible, first, after a while, I decided all the people who told me that saying dang it was a workaround or gosh was a workaround, I decided they can take a long walk off a short pier. I'm not going to live with that kind of legalistic mumbo jumbo and be that uptight. I can't handle it. Now, you don't have to agree with me. If it bothers your conscience to say gosh, then don't say gosh. You shouldn't say it because the Bible says
it's kind of like Romans 14.
It's right.
Give deference to the weaker brother. If it bothers you, if you think it's a sin, then it probably is a sin for you.
If it's not a faith, it's sin. I have no problem with son of a motherless goat or dang. I definitely don't think throwing God's name. I don't think you should mention God's name. You're talking to him, for him, or about him. But
to him, for him, or about him. I like that.
Yeah. But there is no there are certain words. There's no prohibition in the Bible.
Yeah.
For a female dog, which is, I'm going to say it in its clinical term, a female dog is called a bitch. Okay. It's not a bad name. Now, obviously, if you call a woman that, you're insulting her. And so that would be unkind. Most people use the word and they don't even think about who they're talking about. But it has been received by our society as negative. People say, why? Well, right now, anything goes now. You hear them cussing on CNN now. The S word. If you play Scrabble, it's legal.
Really?
In present and past tense, which is when it's spelled with an A. It's in the Scrabble dictionary. So I would play it and take the points if I was in a jam. I don't care. And that's all.
I heard a great discussion of this where they did categories of cuss words. So
who are they? Who are they?
These were pastors.
Pastors can be a real pain in the butt.
But just talking about, so
they can be a pain in the donkey.
The S word, they would classify as vulgarity.
Okay.
Versus obscenity.
What about crap?
Yeah, crap could be a vulgarity too.
What about the Old Testament in King James? It says that Saul pisseth on a wall.
Well, right, and
but
this
if you
was
say
their point.
Pisseth in front of a pastor,
this was their point: is that context does matter because in the Old Testament you see it in a lot of places. In certain contexts, even the prophets would use language that we would find vulgar. Like when Elijah is asking the prophets of Baal if their God's on the crapper. You know, it's like,
yeah, and that is the difficulty that your righteous deeds are as filthy rags. Filthy rag is the menstrual cloth of the day. That's a pretty nasty
a vulgar term,
thing to say. So here's the rule I'd use. Love is not rude. That's what I'd use. Love is not rude. I do think using the Lord's name frivolously is a mistake.
And a special one.
And
it's in the Big Ten.
Right. Well, I'm not sure that that totally encompasses the prohibition of using the Lord's name in vain. I think that actually goes. I don't think that's just about what we would call cuss words. I think that goes farther.
Yeah.
But it's not less than that. It's at least that. Jesus' name is not a swear word, but of all the other words out there, I would say love is not rude, and rude is a judgment call, and it depends on context. So when in doubt, close your mouth. I wasn't always that way. I used to be harder lined on it because I was trying to do the right thing. And without thinking about it much, I just said, I'm not going to say that. But I do think we should be careful, especially around unbelievers, of not getting offended by their language. Because I don't think...
Yeah, your ears aren't going to catch on fire. Don't.
It may be ugly to your ear. I mean, I remember once I finally was able to tame my tongue on the landscaping crew. That's what I worked for. And it wasn't easy, but I did it. And when I was saved, I worked on a landscaping crew. And it took me a while, like a couple of weeks. And I finally went through one full day without cussing. And then I kind of broke the spell. But it then became so offensive to hear the use of the F word. I still don't like that word. Unless the word mother is in front of it, then you can say it with a certain rhythm. And this is true confessions that I find enjoyable and funny. Mainly, maybe because I listened to too much of it and too much like Richard Pryor when I was young. There's a rhythm, but nevertheless, I just don't like the F word. And it's what you say for when you're really angry, and you're losing your temper. And these guys, like most people today, when especially use the F word for noun, verb, adjective, adverb, everything. So one time, to keep myself from saying it, I counted the amount of times they used it in a 15 or 20-minute conversation, because that's how long we were in the truck together going someplace. And it was incredible. I mean, like
53 times or something.
Oh, that effing guy effed around, and he said the effing ice cream was effing this, so he was effed up, and I said your effing F is an FFF. I'm like, wow, that's actually, I was kind of impressed that they could do that. But in general, being offended, there is a matter of disciplining your tongue, losing your temper, and just, if I'm alone and I hit a body part with a hammer, I really try hard not to cuss. Not that I think it's a sin to say the word at that moment. It's just a matter of self-control. But if I'm with just some guys and it's a joke, like I told the hell if I know joke right now in public, sort of. I'm like, come on, it's just a joke. It's
present company matters a lot.
Company, who's listening,
intention of the heart.
Paul says that you should let your speech be edifying to those who hear in the moment. So you got to think who's here. Like, I don't like sex jokes in mixed company. I don't necessarily, but I wouldn't say all jokes that involve sex are necessarily sinful, but many of them are, because can be very crude. And if Josiah, there's no guide to this except for, when you're being rude, and let your conscience be your guide. Sometimes is the best you're going to have to do. You're going to have to go in context, and when in doubt, just don't say it. But there is nothing intrinsically wrong with the slang word we use for human defecation. But if it's not polite in the situation you're in, just remember the Bible says that love is not arrogant. Love does not act unbecomingly. 1 Corinthians 13:5. And unbecomingly is rude. And so, you're talking to your teacher, it's rude. Another place.
If the other person is going to find it rude, it's rude.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things. All things are lawful, but not all things are profitable, Paul says. And if it's a lack of self-control, I think it's always a problem, no matter what it is. So if you just say that word because you can't control yourself, that's definitely out of line. And
yeah, my dad used to give us the exhortation that, when you start to get in the habit, using them as nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, it's actually a certain amount of laziness.
There's a lot of laziness in cussing.
It's you're trying to express a bunch of different things for which there are a large selection of better, more.
You can even invent new words.
Yeah, there's more precise words that you can use to express
and English
yourself.
is flexible. You can invent a brand new word.
And you're getting lazy just by inserting a cuss word to mean 8 million things, rather than try to find the right words.
So I was hiking in Yosemite with a church group when I was working for Payless Drug Stores, and I joined a church there, and the men went on a hike up El Capitan. And I was the fattest dude there. I had to weigh, 218 pounds then.
Be careful.
Well, here's the deal. I was up to like 280 pounds just like 2 months ago. And
I weigh 218 pounds right now.
Right. This is what I'm getting at. Well, I'm 5'11". I'm shorter than you are, but how tall are you?
6'1".
Yeah, I'm shorter than you. But fat is relative. Like now, right this minute, I'm 252 pounds. I've lost weight because I'm taking this fatty medicine. But then, I was 28, 29 years old. I'm weighing 200 and I'm 5'11" now. And I probably weigh around 220 pounds. I'm shorter than you.
Okay.
2 by 2 inches. And all these other guys, we have our backpacks, but I did make it. And I want you to know, I made it the whole way. I had to rest a lot, but we did it. But it was a Christian group. We passed some guys going down. You're going to pass people in California. There's no such thing as wilderness in California. And as we stopped to talk to some of them, after they left, guys were saying, it's just horrible the way they cuss the whole time. Man, people are so crude. Why can't they say things? And I remember being offended by my Christian brothers more than them. By this point, I'd been a Christian long enough to know that sinners, they are who they are. They were nice guys. At least they were kind to us. They cussed a lot. I'm not saying you got to cuss to talk to unbelievers, but if you walk around being offended by everyone you see, you're not going to love people. You're going to judge them. So I would say to Josiah, there's no use needing cuss words. You don't have to use any of them. If you're in a situation where you think you're free in Christ to use it, it will not tear down but build up, like a joke, for example, or something. And the crowd you're with understands it, no problem. I would say no problem. You're free in Christ. If you're a free man, they're words. If you can use them well, use them. Now, other people may give you different opinion, including Will. I don't know what your opinion is, Will. That'd be my advice. You're free in Christ, provided you're not violating your own conscience. Would you say no? You take a harder stand?
No, I agree. I think the reason I'm not... Yeah, I agree. I'm still in the working through old habits in this particular thing. And so there are times where I feel like I'm in 100% control. And then when I'm in 100% control and think it's an appropriate scenario to maybe use an off-color term, then I do. But I still have times where I'd rather not, and maybe it slips out. And those convict me a little bit. So I'm still working. I try to practice more discipline right now because I think I need more discipline in the matter.
Well, and I think that you're hitting it is, rudeness is the problem. If you're being rude to other people, it's not good. But like I said, if I hit myself with a hammer, there's a word I might say and get mad at myself because I could have said rats. What I'm not going to do is sit and say, well, that was just a substitute if you say rats. But I might use that same word in a joke talking to my wife, and I do it on purpose because it's part of the punchline, and it won't bother me at all. I don't like the lack of self-control. if I start saying words that are rude in culture, and I'm only saying them because they are rude and for no other reason. And that's why you say it when you hit yourself on the hand, because it is rude. You're trying to be rude to yourself, or I don't know why. Why do we cuss when we hit ourselves in the hand?
I don't know.
We need to knock that off, or just stop hitting ourselves on the finger with a hammer.
So I would say, getting back to the question
Son
in
of
context,
a motherless goat. See, so you can say that. People say, no, that's a substitute. But I like that. And gravy-sucking pigs.
I would say where we landed on is that the heart matters more and context is king.
Context is king, and the heart matters the most. Yes, good. Self-control matters, I do think.
Yeah.
And if you use complete self-control and you're purposely rude, whoo, that's bad. That's the worst thing you can do. If you're under complete control and you're purposely trying to offend everyone around you, heck, it's hard enough not to offend them by accident. Take my word for it. Don't do it on purpose.
All right, everybody. Well, nice to hang out with you.
Amen to that.
See you around. Send in your questions.
Send in the clowns.